Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Center Grove Trojan Beat, and we're going to call it Season 2 since we're in 2025. I'm Chris Wood, joined by Rob Thompson, and our guest here in just a second as we start our next round of interviews here. And we are beyond thrilled tonight to bring in someone who I would say is one of the most influential people in the Center Grove community in a variety of ways, and someone I've had the opportunity to teach with in two different experiences, and that would be Mr. Dan Andersen. So, Dan, welcome tonight. Thanks for joining us here on the Trojan Beat.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Rob. That's very nice of you to say. Hope I can live up to it, that intro.
Hey, if people are still listening to us, I think anybody we bring on is going to help this program.
Lucky for you, I only have like one listener, so it's all good. No one will care, but we'll enjoy what Chris just said about you.
Obviously, we bring Rob Thompson into this, and Dan, I think from my standpoint, I think we're going to jump all over the place tonight, and we'll kind of take it wherever it goes.
Sounds good.
But I first just want to say congratulations on the Center Grove Teacher of the Year last year. When I saw that, and my wife was teaching here at the time, I can't tell you. I thought, yep, there is not a better person in this community deserves that.
I really appreciate that. That means a lot. Thanks.
So, kind of talk through the experience of being recognized, one as Center Grove Middle School Central's teacher, and then that process and the opportunity to be recognized for the district and what came with that.
The process of the middle school, and I think all the buildings, Teacher of the Year, the teachers vote, and then typically there's a final three. They run that up the flagpole, see if anybody salutes, and it just happened to be my year to be saluted. So from that point, all of the building Teacher of the Years had to do a lot of paperwork, a lot of essays, and that went off to a third party. I think over at UIndy, but I'm not sure. And they read through that and looked through, and I was lucky enough and honored enough to be chosen for that. The incredible teachers that we have, not just in this building, but in this corporation. You know, I alluded to that in my first day. As the Teacher of the Year for the corporation, I was asked to address the entire staff the first day of school back. So teachers, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, secretaries, every single person that works there, I had the honor of speaking to. And it just, to be chosen from the excellence that we have here, it's really humbling to me.
There's a huge phenomenon of teachers in this district. I mean, when I had the opportunity to come back, I think your opening day words were as exciting for me as a veteran / rookie, rookie getting back into it, and inspiring by going back and quotes of people, including G. Rob, as you did, going back and recognizing first-year teachers. Teachers have been in the district for 40 plus years, and involved in the school. I mean,
a bus driver that's been driving for 50 years.
Incredible.
It's amazing.
And bringing us together and unifying us as one group, and I think that's what our quality teachers do. Which again, you're with all those people. So
well, I appreciate that. My focus that day was to talk about our legacy, and to talk about the impact and the influence that every single person that deals with kids has on them. And so I had every single first year, second year, and then I focused on. I said, if there's somebody in this room that taught you, stand up. And if there's somebody that you taught, stand up. And all these people were looking at each other, and you know, I think I'm on my potentially second generation here. Mm-hmm. I know if you go back to my very first senior class, my first year of teaching, they're grandparents now. They're turning 60 and 61. So that's a little humbling too, to know I've been around doing this thing for that long. But I also wanted to focus in that speech on, you know, sometimes there are bad years, and to look beyond that and to not let the nonsense get in the way of that, and to focus on those kids in the classroom. If that becomes our focus, to do the best we can for those young ladies and gentlemen that we have the honor of teaching every single day, then all the rest of us will, it doesn't matter. The rest of this stuff doesn't matter. So
Just a little commentary on my side too. Everything you're saying. I grew up here.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing you early. I was probably early 20s and still kind of hanging around. And exactly what you've talked about is kind of the maturation of what this podcast is about. And you're looking at a kid that grew up in this community that had every opportunity in the world, but there were people like you that saw it before I even saw it. And I'm not a finished product or whatever. None of us are, right? But there's guys like Gary Robinson, Reggie Mattingly. We spoke of these people in the past that took little Rob Thompson and said, "Hey, dude, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right." So I am super excited that we have you for a little bit. I do really want to kind of get into though, like where did you start? How did this all start? Like Chris just asked about just this recent acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Where did you start? Where did this adventure begin?
How long is this podcast? Is this going to be a 3-parter?
Yeah, it might be.
Well, I mean, if I go all the way back to 7th grade, which is absolutely my favorite age to teach because it's the hardest age to teach, and I remember what it was like. Well, I remember how I treated my 7th grade teachers, but I wanted to be a professional drummer. I wanted to be the next Buddy Rich, but I didn't get good enough. And I sang because we sang back then. Everybody sang. My dad sang in the church choir. So I got to high school and I'm like, I'll sing in the choir. Well, one thing led to another and it became a passion. And I talked with my choir director my junior year of high school. I said, I think I want to go into music. And he said, well, you better teach because you're not going to be a singer. And if you know anything, I mean, I've sung professionally on and off for years. And he wasn't trying to motivate me. It wasn't that kind of a thing. It was, real matter of fact. You've got a skill at this. You're okay here, but I don't think you're going to make a living. And I think he knew that I didn't want to make a living doing that. So went to college. I, went to Indiana, Purdue, and Fort Wayne. Got my degree and started teaching. My first job was at Eastside Junior Senior High School. You ever hear of it? Do you know where Auburn, Indiana is?
Mm-hmm.
DeKalb High School? Mm-hmm. Go north about 10 minutes, turn right, go east until you hit Ohio, and then back up 30 seconds. And that's Butler, Indiana. And that was my first job. And I'll tell you, it was amazing. I had a phenomenal principal that let me cut my teeth, let me, make mistakes, tell me how to do things better. Rex Bollinger was phenomenal. And so I, developed, and it wasn't a community that we necessarily wanted to live in at the time. And so we ended up moving to New Haven High School, and I was there for 7 years. And when I left Eastside, I was teaching 6 through 12. So my day consisted of high school choir, 7th grade choir, 8th grade choir, 7th grade general music, 8th grade general music, and every other day, 6th grade choir, 6th grade general music. And that's 7 different classes that I'm teaching basically every day. So after 4 years of that, plus I was driving 45 minutes, plus we had 4 kids by the time I was done, or 3. And so I said, when I left there, I said those fateful words, I will never, if you ever started a sentence like that, I will never teach middle school again, right? Because I was going to be the best high school choir director in the whole state. So I spent 7 years at New Haven High School, in the community, lived in the community. I thought that was really important. You meet families and you make a bigger impact on the kids and on the family that way. And 7 years there, things were happening in East Allen where they were basically going bankrupt. They had 5 high schools and they shared 2,500 students and they refused to consolidate. And so they were cutting programs. They were cutting my program. I got a pink slip for 3 years in a row that said, you might not have a job next year, or you might be teaching at the elementary school. That's not what I wanted for me, and that's not what I wanted for my own kids. I want a corporation that values what I do. So at the time I was working at IU. I was on staff at the IU had a music camp for high school kids. They came from literally all over the country because IU top music program, one of the top in the world. And so I was on staff there working with the program and had heard about a couple jobs that were open. North Central High School had an opening, although it wasn't full-time. And then Center Grove High School had an opening. And I'd never heard of Center Grove before, being from up north, which I know shocks Center Grove people. But I had talked with another person. They're like, well, that's a lot of show choir there. That's not up your alley. You do, concert choir music primarily. And at the same time, I got a chance to work with Bloomington South High School's choir. And their choir, they do a summer camp also, and they do concert choir music, they do vocal jazz, they do show choir, they do everything, just one choir. And after spending a week with them, I had already put Center Grove out of my mind. That wasn't a job that I was going to look at. I spent a week with them, and I'm driving home up what was 37 up to Fort Wayne on a Friday night. And I was thinking, okay, I can see how choreography, how movement can impact a choir as long as it's done educationally, etc. And I drove past a sign that said Center Grove Schools. And I'm like, huh, you know, that's interesting. I got home, and here's a name you guys will remember. My wife, I had to wake her up and she said, some Terry Thompson from Center Grove called and wants you to call on Monday. Of course, this is before email or anything like that. And at the time, I didn't know if Terry was a man or a woman. He was quite a man, though, I'll tell you what. He was assistant superintendent. And so if I hadn't spent that week at Bloomington South High School, I wouldn't have thought about it. I probably wouldn't even be here right now. And so we started the interview process. One thing led to another and ended up getting the job. And I was at Center Grove High School for 7 years. We built a huge program. We were the largest choir program in the state of Indiana. And for a few different reasons, I don't know how much you want me to delve into it, but I wanted a third choir director for the high school. All of the schools our size, Warren Central, Carmel, Penn High School, all these major schools had 3 full-time choir directors. We still had 2. And so I wrote a proposal. Bill Long at the time was our principal, took it over, and the assistant superintendent and the superintendent were like, well, why don't we just cut 100 kids out of the program, put a cap on the numbers? And I was like, that's not the Center Grove way. So at the time, the position working with Jane Brewer, did you have Jane at the middle school? She was a choir director. That's a long time ago.
Long time ago.
But she said, hey, we're starting the second position is going to be full-time. Would you be interested? And if you go circle back around, I will never teach middle school again. I said, yeah, let me do it. And I'll tell you what, that's the best decision I think I've made.
What was that, 2001, 2000?
I think it was
teaching.
01. Yeah.
Okay.
That was the best decision I made professionally and personally. My 2 older daughters were going to be a junior and a senior that next year. And I talked to them about it. I said, I'm not making this decision without your blessing. And they looked at me and they said, we might lose you as a choir director, but we'll get you back as a dad. That's all I needed to hear. So I took the job over here, and it's been incredible. It's just been, I don't want to leave. The opportunity, I just can't imagine a job where you get to do what you love to do with a community that supports it. Who else has a job like we have? You walk in, have a blast every day with kids. You have an impact on their lives, hopefully. And, it wears you out all day, but you go home energized because, because currently we teach. My daughter and I actually team teach together. She was the one that was going to be a senior that year. And we see 580 kids every day. I don't know if you knew that, Rob.
That's awesome.
Chris knows that. He's walked by our room a couple of times.
Yeah.
So that's the story, a long story about how I got here.
Once again, we're joined by Dan Andersen and talking about his involvement and impact in the Center Grove community. And Dan, talking about the middle school experience, if you could say these are the 3 things that you think are most important for your young men and women who come into your classroom, be it grade 6, 7, and 8. Sorry, this is a question off the cuff. What are those things that you want them to get out of their experience with you and Erica throughout the year?
I would say first and foremost, we talk in our classroom a lot about we have one rule, and the only rule is respect. And everything else is under that umbrella. If you're hitting the person next to you, that's not respect. That's not a discipline thing. That's a respect thing. So I'd say the biggest thing is to respect themselves. because a person can't respect another human being until they have respect for themselves. And I think it goes even beyond that to love yourself, accept yourself, be happy with who you are. And we ask them to do things in our classroom where it's hard to hide. I mean, singing is a very personal thing. You know, sitting doing math at your desk is a lot easier. You can fly under the radar quite a bit in the school until you hit one of those performing arts classes. And singing is such a personal, this is me, especially with those boys. Those voices are doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And so, you know, this year's the first time we have all of our 7th grade boys together, 95 of them in one room.
Wow.
So there's a lot of different weird sounds going on
Yeah.
there. But that first and foremost, love yourself, respect yourself, and then love each other and respect each other. You know, when we talk about respect at the beginning of the year as our one rule, that's the first thing. Respect yourself. Then respect the other people in the room. Then we ask them to respect the physical part of the room, the chairs, the folders, the whatever it is. And then last, we say, we hope to earn your respect. We don't demand the respect, but we show them respect every single day. So was that 2 or 3 so far? I think that was maybe up to 2.
2 for sure, and maybe carrying into a third, but at least
And
2.
I think the other thing that the experiences that they get in our classroom specifically about, because at any given time, well, by the time they're done in middle school with us, they will have or may have sung in English, in Latin, in Japanese, in French, in Swahili, Zulu, maybe 3 or 4 other African languages. We've sung in Mandarin. So all of these different, we do folk songs from around the world. We sing Christmas music. We sing Hanukkah music. We try to expose them. As Gary would say, there's more to the world than Center Grove. And we live that in our classroom. And every chance we get to talk about another country or another person, you know, the community has changed quite a bit from when I started here.
Yep.
And the number of students that we have coming from around the world, I think, is incredible. What an opportunity for us
Absolutely.
to learn about other people and their cultures. I don't know enough about it. I was raised in a dumpy little Catholic high school in Fort Wayne, you know, Bishop Lewis High School. And when you're raised in a small situation where everybody that goes to school is like you and believes like you, it's hard to break out of that. If we can foster that at the middle school level, imagine what a difference it could make, not just in our own little world, but in the world.
So as you've evolved within Center Grove and you know about the changes, I mean, I remember I graduated here in 96. I remember there were tractor days and I didn't have a tractor.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You remember those days?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and when you speak of changes, there's been a ton of changes.
Yeah.
Culturally.
Absolutely.
Right? Demographically. But I'm more interested as you, and in those years you've been here, how have you evolved? And with the changes that have happened, how have you been not stuck in the Center Grove way, which that's why we're here, but also be able to bring people in to foster that community within your classroom and outside of it?
As far as evolving, I think that I came in 30 years ago, 31 years ago, because I was an outsider. And so I came into the community. Y'all that grew up here don't know how hard it is sometimes, especially back then, because it was a smaller community. And my kids felt it, although they were accepted. It's still, you know, when you start in the middle of 5th grade, it's like, come on, that's so hard on a kid. But my own kids handled it really well. But I had the places where I had taught before and the experiences that I've had, I already had a world vision, if you know that's okay to say. And so when I started here, one of my goals was to foster that within the community. And I know Gary talked a lot about there's more to the world than Center Grove. And he taught, I think, one of the perfect things for him, which was world geography, teaching people about the world, because he preached that. And so I brought that in also throughout and with the medium of music. You know, I think we both had the same belief in people need to learn about each other so we can love and accept each other. his tool, what if you will, was social studies. Mine happens to be music, but ultimately the same goal.
Yeah.
So the community has changed quite a bit, but it stayed the same quite a bit too. And there's pockets of both.
Yeah.
And I think it is a relatively conservative community.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that as a teacher, especially when I'm programming music, I have to be aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it does allow us to do Christmas music. There are schools that don't allow sacred music or Christmas music, and you can't have anything that's a holiday. And so I feel really lucky that we're in a community where we can sing sacred music. I mean, you think of some of the greats in the history of music. Beethoven wrote sacred music. Bach wrote sacred music. We can't eliminate that from education. So, but the opportunity to bring my experiences and worldly view maybe to Center Grove and meet with people and get to know people that have the same views, people that are from different parts of the country, and just let things grow and blossom.
Awesome.
One of the things that I think is pretty awesome that you do is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that you take kids on field trips and compete in different, or had the opportunity to be exposed to different competitions or different performances.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about some of those experiences, what those mean to you in terms of what your vision is for that.
The competition part is something that we really don't do anymore.
Okay.
We used to participate in the ISMA competition with the middle school kids. So I'll just talk about my experience here, because obviously when I was at the high school,
it's a whole different thing.
Yeah, but we would perform at the ISMA competition. It's a Saturday in March, and all the choirs go and perform. But the performances that I found are way more impactful for the students. We'll do choir festivals where we will be one of 2 or 3 or 4 different choirs at this festival, and they get to hear groups from other schools. They get to that's actually what got me involved in singing, or into wanting to be a choir director, was being in a choir festival when I was in high school. And I saw these really good choirs and I saw these really bad choirs. And I noticed, and I knew all the kids are the same. What's the difference in these groups? Well, it's the director. And I wanted to have that impact. So exposing them to choir festivals is one thing. We have been lucky to be asked to sing at the state music convention a few times since I've been here. Actually, my second year here with Jane Brewer, she had already been asked, so we sang up there. That's a great experience for our students to drive up to Fort Wayne or Indy, wherever the festival is. My favorite opportunity when I take kids out is when we take one of our 8th grade choirs to the nursing homes and a hospital and retirement community at Christmas time. And we spend a day, and we start the day singing in a memory care unit with Alzheimer's patients. And then we move to the main facility of that and sing for people that are in the nursing home. Then we go to Community South Hospital and sing outside of their cafeteria for anyone walking by. And then we did sing in their cancer center, but they've been renovating it for the last few years. And then we end up at Greenwood Village South, which is a retirement community. And ironically, it used to be like the teachers' retirement place. So there's all these teachers that are there. And when we first started doing that, I met this lady, and she said, "Oh, I taught for 40 years." And at the time, I'm like, that is one long time. This is my 42nd year of teaching right now. So I'm like, well, but to see 13 and 14-year-olds, first of all, in an atmosphere like a nursing home or a Alzheimer's unit is one thing. But then when we're done singing, to see them walk over, get down on their knee, hold the hands of these people, and carry on a conversation with them, it is amazing to me. It's something I never could have done at the time. I couldn't, when we were in high school, everybody that was in high school choir has sung in a nursing home at one point in time. I was the one loading the truck with the equipment. I wasn't about to go talk to people. That wasn't in me then. I didn't get comfortable doing that until I was taking choirs to retirement communities or nursing homes. So to be able to see that and see the impact that they're standing in line waiting so that they can talk to one of these old patients, these elderly patients. And it's amazing. It warms my heart. And I've seen it in some of our kids. It's life-changing for them.
Mm-hmm.
We've had so many students over the years that, like, they'll do a senior essay for whatever, this or that, or for some kind of scholarship, and they'll send me a copy and they'll say, I just wanted you to know that that one day, maybe even that 15 minutes they spent talking to those patients, had such a huge impact on them. So those are the things that keep me going too, keep me teaching.
You know, we talk about changes in Center Grove. When I was in 7th grade, they put me in the Scared Straight program and sent me to Johnson County Jail for a day.
Oh, no kidding.
For real. For real. We'll talk about it off air because my business isn't no one else's business. But so if you're in the community, let's say you're downtown, what's your pitch? What when someone asks you what Center Grove means to Dan Andersen, what do you tell them?
I tell them that it's a community that values community first. It's a community that values excellence. And if you look at everything that Center Grove, the school corporation has, athletics, academics, the robotics teams,
Mm-hmm.
every club available,
Yep.
music.
Yep.
You know, the music program is known throughout the country.
Yep.
You know, the football program's getting to be there too. A lot of people know about the football program a lot more now.
Yep.
And we have students at the high school that take art that are gold key winners, and they're national recognitions. The striving for excellence and the support for those things. When I think about, of course, high school choir, and the choir program is what I do, but the high school choir program currently, they haven't raised their price for a student to be in choir in 19 years.
That's awesome.
It's the same cost. The cost to do that program has risen astronomically.
Absolutely.
But they have fundraisers, and they have this big gala that they do once a year, and the support, the community support, people donating things, people coming and buying things in the auction because they know this is a worthwhile program for kids. And a lot of them are like, this program impacted my own son or daughter, and so I want to give back. The giving back is amazing to me in this community as well. Yeah. How can I help? What can I do? Yeah. Every time we ever ask for parent help, even little things like we have a kickoff for our fundraiser that we do, and we give the kids little bags of popcorn and a bottle of water. Well, we ask the parents, hey, for donations. It's 2 days in, and we have 1,200 bottles of water and 1,500 little bags of popcorn. It's amazing to me.
Yeah. An extension of that question I just asked, and I think you bring a different perspective. Obviously, you both educators here in Center Grove, but been doing it for a long time. Raised your family here.
Yes.
What's that mean to you? What? Because I have sons. Chris has sons, right? We have family and have chosen to root here.
Right.
What has that meant to you, for you, your family, the time that you've spent in this community?
I think there's a level of pride being a part of the community as a teacher in the community, but also a member of the community. Mm-hmm. I'm proud of Center Grove. Is it without faults? Absolutely not. I've never lived in a community or taught in a building or directed in a church that didn't have faults.
Absolutely.
The faults are overlooked, though, because of the ability of this community to rally around people that need it, to support where it's needed, to push towards excellence all the time. Two of my daughters both teach in this building, awesome. One with me in the classroom, and I've got a son-in-law that teaches in this building, freshman football coach, Brandon Painter, and we are really proud of this community. I've got grandkids that go here now. So my oldest is in Debtones, Molly. She's a sophomore. Macy's an 8th grader. She's getting ready to, do the cheer and hopefully choir at the high school. But I can't imagine not being part of this community, either as a teacher or a community member. I know that if I ever retire, because people did stop asking me when I'm going to retire. It's now, are you going to retire? So is that one of your questions? But I know I'll still be involved because of the the importance that Center Grove has for my family and for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we all, I mean, that's why we're doing this, right? Is we feel that, and it's important. It's important to acknowledge.
Once again, we're joined by Dan Andersen here on the Trojan Beat. And Dan, you kind of alluded to having two daughters, the teacher in the school, and your son-in-law, Brandon. What's that like to have the opportunity to be that close? One is your colleague all day.
Right.
Another one daughter who's in the building.
Yep.
And then Brandon who's in the building. What's that like? That's a very special dynamic. And then on top of that, having grandkids, including one in the building, and more to come next year.
Yeah. And my wife used to be one of the secretaries here for 20-some years. It is, there's not words because it's just so special and it's awesome. And I hate, because, it's just who we are now. We're part of the staff. And I don't want to say I take it for granted, but we're used to it. I'll go all the way back to when my daughter Erica, who teaches with me, was a freshman in high school. And that's the first time one of my kids was in my choir. And it was a really easy transition. She belonged there. She auditioned like everyone else. And I got to direct her in the musicals. I directed the musical. And Stacy then joined the choir the next year. And so I was their teacher first before I was their colleague. And so that kind of opened up the door and made this transition easier. It is... it's, again, I'm having a hard time finding words to tell you how impactful it is for me. I know that when Erica had the opportunity to teach here, I told our principal we have to hire her. She's the best choir director in the state. And I'm not making that up. She is.
Well, for someone who was at Whiteland with her and the job she did at Whiteland High School and that amount of time that she was there, it was phenomenal.
Right. And so colleagues of mine, because we're getting ready to have our state convention, our music educators convention this weekend, and they always ask, what's it like teaching with your daughter? I said, I sit back, eat bonbons, and watch her teach. It's great. But we have, because we approach things similarly, it's very easy teaching together. The transitions are just seamless. People will hire us to come and work with their choirs. And we don't even talk about how we're going to organize our time. Like we'll go work with like Beach Grove's show choir for 3 hours. And they do their show and we can walk up there and one of us just starts talking. And there's just this seamless back and forth. And so working together has been incredible. It's been such a great experience. It might be why I'm still teaching. Because if it wasn't for her through a few years ago when it was, one of the things I started on my first day speech was, worst year of teaching ever was year 40. Worst year ever. And it wasn't about anything in the classroom. But if she hadn't been there to be like my anchor through that time, I don't know if I would have stayed. And so, but I look at them most of the time because they're colleagues and I don't give them any special favoritism or anything like that because I couldn't when they were students. And my other two kids, a lot of people don't know I have two other kids. I have another daughter that teaches Spanish out in California. Actually, they, what's going on in California right now, they're just getting back into their house. They were evacuated in Pasadena. And then my son, who's the black sheep of the family, he's an orthopedic surgeon, only non-teacher. We're really
What'd you do wrong with that? What did you do wrong with that?
But I've been able to teach all four of my kids, and that's been fantastic for me. And to be able to see them grow as young ladies and gentlemen and then turn into the adults that they've become, and all of them having an impact. I get to see my kids and my son-in-law Brandon have an impact on people every single day, on young people. And I had, because I taught Brandon, BA. I taught BA when he was in high school, too. So he was in choir for, I think, a year. And so to know that I had an impact on them as parents and as a teacher, to see them giving back and that legacy that we talked about, that just continues to carry on. And I talk about my high school choir director had such an impact on me. My dad had such an impact on me. And that's all going through me to them. There's not a student that I've taught over the years, 10,000 students, whatever it's been, that hasn't been impacted by my dad and my high school choir director, because they were so powerful in my life. So that didn't answer the question totally, but
No, it did. I'll ask one additional follow-up question. What are the Thanksgiving meals like? What are the Christmas dinner? I mean, you're
everybody
around
thinks
so much each day. I mean,
right.
is it work talk blended in, or is it
Well,
a whole different conversation?
everybody thinks all we do is sing at home, and I couldn't be further.
You speak in music.
Now,
Speak in notes.
Stacy Painter, she's the one that probably sings more than any of us, but it sometimes, unfortunately, is too much work talk, and we've got to be, a lot aware of it and cognizant of
But
it.
it's out of passion.
It is.
Yeah.
It's not just what we do; it's who we are.
Yeah.
And I wish everyone had a career, a vocation where it wasn't something they did every day. It was who they are. And I wish they were as passionate as I am and as I see my kids are about what they do for a living. Yeah, there's tons of frustration when you're that passionate about something. And this comes up and you're like, we need to do better. For why? Well, for the kids. And that's the bottom line. So, yeah, we do have too much shop talk, but we talk about IU basketball as much as we talk about other things.
There's not a lot
You're
to talk about.
desperate about IU basketball right now.
There's only a few words you need.
Woodson.
Yeah, there's only a few words.
Which team is going to show up?
Correct. Yeah.
Well, if they're ranked in the top 40, it's not the right team. That's the problem.
Hey, a couple things on what you just said, though. You mentioned sitting around and watching bonbons. I'm glad watching bonbons while your daughter. I'm glad no one listens to this because early retirement might be happening. Now, I get into some of the challenges. Like I'm interested. You said you started off your speech. You're 40, and you don't have to go into it as much or whatever. But I just curious because I think, and the reason I'm in sales, I usually tank before I rise, right? Like I get through these struggles, right? And emotionally, as you get older, you become mature, you look at things differently. We all face challenges, but I also think it is important for individuals that have gone through it and have grinded, and have had the good days, but have also had the bad days,
right?
Because the bad days can bury you.
Oh, absolutely. If you're not careful.
So if you don't want to get into specifics, that's fine. But how do you face those challenges? How do you overcome them? How have you done what you've done to get to this point in your career and life?
My second year of teaching, I interviewed at a life insurance company. I was done, and it happened to be Lincoln National Life Insurance, where my dad spent his whole career. And he got me an interview with a person in personnel, and I thought I did a great job, and I never got a call. And I think he went in there and said, "You're not going to hire him," because I think my dad knew what I was supposed to be doing. So, but second year of doing anything is rough.
Yeah.
And we had a new baby, and I was driving 45 minutes one way. So the challenges there were the amount of time I had to spend as a high school choir director in that program, and the amount of time I was missing being at home. So the challenges 2 years ago was my 40th year of teaching, and the worst, even when I almost left. The challenges have become greater over the years because of extra things that we didn't have to do 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it can be just little things. Yeah. But it's a lot of those. It's, what is it, death by paper cut? The straws that break the camel's back. Well, I had a lot of straws. Technology is a phenomenal tool, except when you have to press 5 more buttons to get where you need to be, and you got 130 kids staring you down. When are we going to start doing anything? The technology is wonderful, but there are times when it does get in our way.
Yeah.
And we're required to use it.
Yeah.
Not that they say you have to, but there's certain things we can't do without doing it. The way that we are perceived, educators, I'm saying we, by a good chunk of our state, it turns my stomach, honestly. We give of our lives for these kids, and and it's just frustrating to see the things at the state house, the changes that are trying to be made, that I think will be made soon. It's rough to watch.
Yeah.
Um, the I mean, those are a couple. Those are biggies.
Yeah. Yeah.
There a couple years ago, there was one thing, and I won't get into it now, um, but it was, had to do with teaching in this corporation,
Yeah.
that it hit me really hard, and it was kind of one of those straw that breaks the camel back thing, and talked with different people about the issue, and didn't get resolution, and it was very frustrating. And so that year it was a terrible year for me. I don't know if my students knew that or not. I have a feeling they did.
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
But that summer, I made a commitment, and I said, I can't do that again, and I'm not ready to retire. I made a commitment. I said, I'm going to focus on those kids that come into my classroom every single day. That's all that matters. And all the nonsense, all the BS that's out there, all the chatter, if you will,
The noise.
and the chatter,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to listen to it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter.
It does not matter.
Because that's not impacting my kids in the classroom.
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
And I can't be my best me when I'm listening to all the nonsense. I've got to focus on being my best me so they can be their best them. I was not a good example for those kids that year. Things were setting me off. I was short-tempered. It was ridiculous. I'm back to, I think, close to where I was before.
Well, and I would say, my wife's an educator, and she's in the district.
Awesome.
And she's not from around here, and we've been married for 25 years. And I just said about 2 months ago, I was like, it might be time to go find doing something you can be passionate about again, because there's just so much noise.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And it can be local, state, whatever it is.
Right.
But I'm glad you said that, because what I heard you say is that it's about Dane Andersen, and it's about sharing your gifts, and it's about impacting the people that I've done, and the noise and all that is just noise.
Yeah.
So I compliment on you on that.
I see there are more teachers leaving teaching now than I ever remember in my career. And back 10, 15 years ago, I used to fight when I'd say, hey, I'm thinking about leaving. No, we need you in the classroom. I don't blame teachers right now for leaving. And that's a sad state. They can get treated with more respect. They can make more money. There's just all that stuff. But there has to, I didn't get into this for the money. In my first year of teaching, I made $12,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I knew back then, this is going to be a long road. We're going to somehow or other get our kids through college. We're going to somehow or other, put food on the table. And that wasn't why I did it. And it's still not why I do it. So there's things that I've been used to putting off, and it's like, this doesn't matter. But to kids nowadays, it's a different world than it was. $12,000 was a different amount of money in 1983 than $60,000 is now. And so I'd love to see the compensation there for the younger families, especially if there's a 2-teacher income. These are the families that are being hit the hardest. So when they look a different direction, I'm like, you know what? Gosh darn it, those kids are gonna miss out on an important person in their life. But I don't blame you.
I'll jump in there and kind of echo that. I will say, from my perspective, as someone who left the education world for 6 years and came back, I think you also learn a greater appreciation for what it means to be a teacher by seeing others such as my wife and our colleagues and friends that we were close to, and the opportunity to come back and be part of that. You cherish it a little bit more, getting that second opportunity. But the respect issue out there for what a teacher does, not just between the bell to bell, but until 6 o'clock or on the weekends, or those things that aren't necessarily recognized as well.
Yeah. So. And, I want to stress, I'm not bitter about any of that. I know it's a tough job. I went into it eyes wide open, and I don't want to point out all the bad things about the job, because there might be a dozen things that are crappy about the job, but there are hundreds and hundreds of things that are rewarding about the job.
Yeah.
And, 580 that come into my classroom every single day, ready to be told a dumb joke to. Ready to, I'm going to tell them a dumb joke. I'm going to say stupid things. I'm going to be a goofball. Because if they're goofy, they need to see that somebody is comfortable being goofy in front of a group, and maybe they'll feel like being themselves a little bit more. And so the reward for me is spending the time with the kids, seeing them grow. I just got an email from a freshman in high school and saying, hey, I appreciate you pushing me last year. Well, the last 3 years. He said, I fought you, and I want you to know that it meant something, and I'm going to want to work harder, and you had an impact on my life. I mean, I get those emails a lot, and not just from 14-year-olds, but 40-year-olds sometimes. It's, Tom Gandolf. You probably went to school with Tom Gandolf, didn't you?
Yep.
Tom still doesn't call me Dan. He calls me Mr. Andersen.
Yep.
He's been out of school. He graduated in 95.
Yep.
What year? Is that 30 years?
Yeah.
Tom, you are old if you're listening.
Yeah, Tom is old.
But I just ran into him, and I've got
go buy a Gandalf bat.
Absolutely.
Go get a Gandalf bat.
But he said, Mr. Andersen, how you doing? I said, Tom, you can call me Dan. It's been 30 years.
Yeah.
And so after our conversation, he started leaving. He goes, see ya, Dan. And it was the most awkward thing. So Tom, keep calling me Mr. Andersen. It's fine. I do have a Tom Gandolf story. I don't know if we have time.
We got a few minutes left.
My first year at Center Grove, he was a senior. He was in sound system, played football, baseball, incredible athlete. Didn't really know these kids yet. It was September, and we went to a show choir contest over at Southmont High School near Terre Haute. Okay. Mrs. Meeks was the head choral director. I was the assistant. Well, she was sick that week, not able to make the trip. So here I am at 6:30 Saturday morning. Says we're leaving at 6:30. I'm like, okay, let's go. They're like, Tom Gandolf's not here. I said, what time does it say on the itinerary? 6:30. I said, what time is it right now? 6:30. Let's roll. So on the inside, I'm thinking he is going to snap me like a twig.
Yeah.
And so we get to Southmont. We get up to the homeroom. We're doing all of our stuff. And I look up and I see at the end of the hallway, here comes Tom Gandolf, walking down the hallway with a purpose, making a beeline for me. And I brace myself. I'm like, here we go. He walks up. He puts his hand out, shakes my hand. He said, Mr. Andersen, I'm sorry. That'll never happen again. So that's my Tom Gandolf story. Yeah. And I knew right then and there, this is an outstanding young man. I still wouldn't have waited for him. But, because I believe in that whole to be on time is
standards are standards.
Absolutely. Yep. To be early is to be on time, et cetera. So,
well, I will just reiterate what you guys can't say. There are a lot of people that love our teachers and want the best for our teachers. Mm-hmm. And
we do know that.
Yes.
We absolutely.
Well, I just want, whether you feel it or not, there are things that I learned in these buildings that did not come from a textbook, that came from adults in my life that I needed at the time. Mm-hmm. I didn't know at the time. And I'm 46, and I still replay those things from that time.
Right.
So it's extremely important, and that there should be equitable pay. There should be benefits. I'm not going to get into this because Coach Wood's going to end up muting me, and this might be another off-segment deal. But I will just say,
you're the one that can say it more than we
I can say it, and there's no retribution from except people not liking me, which I'm past that. So we appreciate you. There are people out there that love our teachers. You guys need to be recognized. I am so happy we got you on here because this is important. It's important for the one listener that we have.
Makes me want to continue this after that. So we got about 6 minutes left here, Dan.
All right.
And I have one more topic. I don't know if Rob has anything he wants to throw in there as well, but what's Dan Andersen do outside of the education and the musical world? What are some of those things you enjoy doing outside of the music stuff?
Well, I'll tell you, I wish I could spend more time every day with my 10 grandkids. We got 5 that live right here in the community, the Painters and the Coulters, and we have 2 in Pasadena, 2 grandsons out there, and my son that's in Boston right now. They have 3 kids, a boy and 2 girls, and that's my passion. If I'm doing anything that's not I'm losing my microphone.
There
There we
you
go.
go.
If I'm doing anything that's not related to family or whatever, it's playing golf. I love to play golf. I unfortunately this past year I played one time.
Don't talk about the 1 or 2 times we played way back in the day, please.
Well,
You
I
play
think we're
golf.
we're both probably better now than we were back then.
I don't think I've picked up a club since then.
But outside of my day-to-day teaching, I've had the really cool opportunity. Like I said, when I moved to the middle school, it was the best thing personally and professionally. It opened a lot of doors for me, as far as going to schools and working with other people's choirs or presenting sessions at state conferences. I have 2 books published on the adolescent voice. None of that would have happened if I had stayed teaching at the high school. And so spending time working with younger teachers and talking to colleagues, going and working with other people's choirs. That's become a whole separate passion for me. I absolutely love it. I don't want to spend less time here because of that, but that gets me, it feeds me in a whole different way. This Saturday I'm going to be up in Fort Wayne, and I'm going to be talking at the State Music Convention and doing a session on the boy's changing voice, and we'll have some young men there for me to work with, and I love that because I'm not any kind of expert. I spent 42 years learning this to be best for the kids in my classroom, and it just so happens that people ask me to go share that, and that's kind of cool. That's
Yeah.
also really humbling. But that's one of the other things that takes my time.
Talk about your walk for autism. I think you do, don't you? That once a year at
I
minimum.
do. My father battled walk for Alzheimer's
Alzheimer's.
is the
My
walk that I
apology.
do. Yeah. That's okay. Well, I've got the 2 tattoos here.
I saw the tattoo. I
You
apologize.
see, I've got
Yes.
an autism tattoo, and I've got an Alzheimer's awareness tattoo. But my father and my father-in-law both dealt with autism. It hit my dad pretty hard, and it was hard to watch him through that process. But the cool thing about my dad was, his entire life he never met a stranger, and I don't want that to sound like weird, because when he got Alzheimer's, he'd still talk to us even though he didn't know who we were, the same way he talked to anybody that he met. He was engaging. He was happy. He was, how are you? Everything was about the other person with him. Just a phenomenal human being. And to watch what that disease did to his mind was it was really hard. And so the Alzheimer's Association has a walk to end alls that they do every fall. And the first year I did it was actually COVID year, so it was a virtual walk anyway. And I think all they do in their walk is maybe a mile or so, but I committed to doing 10 miles. So every year, the end of September, beginning of October, whatever it is, I'll be on our track out here, and I'll have my earbuds in and walking 10 miles by myself, thinking about my dad, my father-in-law, and seeing if there's money that can be raised to cure this. There's not one survivor yet to Alzheimer's. That's pretty sobering, I think.
Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
think of all of the other issues and diseases and how much cancer that we've seen that's curable right now, and it's amazing. In my lifetime, the changes that have been made in medicine. So I'm just hoping that in my lifetime we'll have a survivor.
I'm just going to close with a comment, and I think that, Dan, this is the reason why we had this, and I told Coach Wood this. I'm hoping that maybe I can make some friends out of this with people that I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I've seen your face, seen you running around.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Well, so you got to look at this thing too. I keep changing my appearance. Maybe it'll get better, but it hasn't yet. But I appreciate you greatly, and I know with even my class from 1996 and some influences you've had there, and ran in some circles that were involved in the show choir. I was the farthest away from it. I was in Johnson County Jail, remember? Not literally, but I think this is what we're about, and I think no matter where we are in the world, your love for your community is apparent, and your love for your students is apparent, and that's what's important. So I think, like Gary Robinson had for me, And I would say from the stories that I've heard and the stories you're telling, you've had an impact on a lot of people.
I appreciate that.
And it's special to me that we get to have this conversation. Mm-hmm. But it's even more important to me while we're doing this is because we can highlight people like you. So thank you for being a Trojan. Thank you for being committed in this community. This community has helped me greatly in times of bad decisions. And it's people like you that have helped me get to where I need to be able to follow my passions and do the things I love. So greatly appreciate you.
Awesome. Thanks. Appreciate you guys having me on too. This has been fun.
Yeah, I'll second that just real quick and say you talk about how much you have influenced the kids. I think it's fair to say you influenced the entire staff here that's had a chance to work. I know you influenced me when I left and went to Whiteland the first time. Getting to know you a little bit outside doing the whole golf thing, which again, we don't talk much about. You were fine. I was not. And then the opportunity to come back. And one of the first people I think of is getting to see Dan Andersen. And I think there's many people out there who would think that same way. So thank you from a staff standpoint for what you do for so many. And it's pretty incredible to get to work with you and your entire family and what they mean to the community as well. So again, we appreciate you tremendously for being on this podcast.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
If I can speak, I couldn't talk at all last night. Now I'm just mumbling my words. So, all right, Dan, thank you again. Any final thoughts or anything from you before we wrap this up?
No, just I look forward to subscribing and listening to all the podcasts. I think you guys are doing a phenomenal thing here and great work. I appreciate you both.
Well, thanks again for joining us tonight.
Make sure you hit up Tom. Let him know. Get Tom on here. If not, I will.
It's a great idea. Yeah, so, he's got stories.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's Dan Andersen here on the Center Grove Trojan Beat. We will be back here soon again with our next broadcast. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great night.